In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about how the 3 device designs of your website work together and how to customize your pages to fit each device individually. As I mentioned in previous videos, we have a very handy device selector here on our top toolbar, allowing you to seamlessly switch between the different devices to edit them. Here we're looking at the desktop version of our About page, but we can click over to Tablet, and we've got a pretty similar appearance here. You'll often find that tablet and desktop have matching layouts because their formats aren't too drastically different. We've still got full width imagery and multiple columns side by side. But now let's click over to mobile. And here we'll notice some significant differences. Many elements are sized smaller, we no longer see columns side by side, but rather they're stacked vertically, and overall we've got the same content, but it's displayed in a much more vertical and mobile-friendly format. So how does this factor into our design changes, and how do we customize for each display? Well, it really comes down to what kind of changes you're making. A good rule of thumb to remember is if you change what is displayed, like the content itself, it's going to reflect on all devices simultaneously. If you're changing how it's displayed, speaking specifically to the sizing and alignment, it'll usually need to be individualized to the device. For example, let's start on our desktop version. And here in the Family Business section, we've got one button for Contact Us. Now let's say we wanted to add a second button. Well, I can right-click on it, we'll copy it, and I'll right-click once again and hit Paste. Now let's align this to the left to match the other one. And now let's click into its panel and we'll change the text to say, Read More. And just for the sake of demo here, let me go into the design section and we'll change the border to be something like bright red, just so we can tell the difference. There we go. Okay, let me close out of this. Now let's click over to our tablet version. And here we can see those exact changes we made are also visible here for tablet. And if we click to mobile, we get something really interesting. The what has been changed, meaning on desktop, we added a second button with a red border to say Read More. And here on mobile, we have a second button with a red border that says Read More. But here on mobile, it's center aligned. It's not left aligned. The alignment and sizing would be something that's device specific. I'll show you. Here on mobile, let's size these both down to be about half the size. And then just for the sake of demo here, let's align them both to the far right. It looks weird, but I'm making a point. Great, now let's go back to the tablet version. We can see here on tablet that those changes are not reflected. And back to desktop again. Those changes are also not reflected here either. It really comes down to the way mobile formatting works. Obviously for mobile sites, in most cases you want the content to match, right? You want the wording to stay the same, you want the color to stay the same, but the size and the alignment has to be different to make sense for mobile. Our builder functions in such a way that makes the styling experience very intuitive, and almost every single time will give you exactly what you want. But here is one more pro tip, just in case you're not getting what you want. Let's say for some reason you don't want this image to display on mobile at all. Well, if you delete it on the mobile site, it's going to remove it entirely across all devices. So here's a workaround. Let's go to our desktop version again, and let's click into the row settings for this section. As I described in previous videos, we have a function here to hide content on various devices. So here's what I do. We're going to copy this row, like so, and we'll click row again, and I'll hit paste. There. Now here on desktop, we've got 2 instances of the exact same row. Now ultimately, I want one of them to be viewable on desktop and tablet, and I want the other one to be viewed on mobile. Well, how do we do this? Well, let's click into the first one, and we're going to go to hide on device, and we'll select Hide on Mobile. This will be the one that's viewed on the larger devices. Now let's go to the second one, and we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to hide it on tablet and desktop. So now we have only one occurrence of this row on each device, but on mobile, technically it's a completely different row. So we can go to mobile, we can remove this image, or whatever it was you wanted to do for this device specifically, and if we click back to tablet, the image is still there, and clicking back to desktop, of course the image is still there. It's that simple. One last thing to note here, let's click to our home page, and I'm going to click into this photo gallery here in the recent projects section. Now when you go to a design section of a widget, we see a small notation here on the top. It says content display for desktop only. That means that this particular parameter, which is the layout option for how the images are placed on the page, will only be reflected in the desktop version of the site. Now let's go to tablet. And we'll click into the same widget, and we can even already see that it looks different here. Into the panel, this one shows for tablet only, and the same goes for mobile. So keep an eye out for stuff like this, particularly when it comes to layout grids. There are certain settings in various widgets that wouldn't make sense to apply to all three devices, so the builder here will account for that automatically and will allow you to style for each individually. But always remember, at the end of the day, if there's a particular styling parameter that you aren't able to parse out for a specific device, you can always create a new row like I just showed you and do it that way. Ultimately, you have complete control over your content and how it's displayed among devices, all without ever requiring you to build the site 3 times. It's pretty awesome.